Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for staying back. And we are the last panel before we have lunch outside. And we promise to make this dynamic, fun, engaging. So stay put with us. So my name is Debbie. I'm the founder and CEO of Techstorm TV. You might or might not have heard of us, but we are Southeast Asia's largest TV network and media network that's all about esports, video games, Web3, the world of finance, and deep tech. So we're all about building the fandom to connect the mainstream audience to be able to champion these thematics across a multiple footprint of Asia, reaching a 71 million on mobile streaming and 15 million of mainstream subscriber homes across the region. And I'm happy to sort of have my esteemed panelists today. And thanks to the organizers, ESI, and also Vibe for sponsoring this panel. So I have Cholo, Ben, and I have Yuki as well. So I'll let you gentlemen do a quick introduction a little bit on yourself, and then we get kick-started.
Hey everyone, good morning. It's a big change, I would say, from like a year ago. People couldn't stop talking about Web3 now. They force people to listen by putting it the session before lunch. Jokes aside, so I'm CEO and co-founder of Piff Nation. So what we do is we're building Asia's largest user acquisition and engagement platform and retention. So we help game developers, whether it's Web2 or Web3, reach our ecosystem of about 60,000 players in Philippines and Indonesia. And we're continuing to kind of grow that player base. And essentially, we help them in terms of go-to-market, help them engage with KOLs, and really just get the word out there in terms of the game that they're building. So how we see it as user engagement and acquisition is a problem for Web2 and Web3. What we do as well is we let players, as they engage in the platform, they build this profile that allows us to target them more specifically. We can talk about that a bit later, but basically that's us.
Great. And Yuki?
Hi, my name is Yuki. I'm from beyondClub. So beyondClub is a gamified membership program to build a long-term community and then give the sense of ownership or belonging for their fans. So basically, they can having an engagement on social media or buying merchandise, their membership or NFT can evolve from like bronze to silver or silver to gold, and then those higher tiers could have a better utility or access to increase more engagement with the community or like esports team. Yeah.
Thank you. And Ben?
Hey everyone, I'm Ben. I work for Crypto.com Capital, which is basically the venture arm of Crypto.com. Crypto.com itself is a global exchange business with more than 80 million retail customers, spanning across our flagship app product. We also have the exchange, our cards products, and the DeFi wallet, and of course a lot of other products. The fund itself invests across like gaming, DeFi, infrastructure, and certainly looking forward to kind of discussing a bit more about gaming today.
Sure, thank you. I think we have a great panel. We have Crypto.com, we have beyondClub, and of course we have PIF Nation. So I think we all know and we've seen enough about the news on crypto, the world of crypto, the sector of crypto, and of course with that, digital assets has taken a major bashing, I think, whole of last year. I think both on the regulatory side and also on the commercial side. I think, would you see this? Would there be fundamentals that you think would be sustainable? And maybe I will just throw that question open to Ben first. To comment, and then before we go down to Yuki and Cholo.
About regulation, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think how would you see that? Because obviously the entire sort of sector of last year has taken a sort of a major downslide. Both on the regulatory side that we know. We've seen the news on SEC in the US. We've seen on the private side news associating, I think, with as a result of what happened last year with the two major downslide. There's always a question around the fundamentals. What are your thoughts and your perspectives on that?
I think with regards to the regulatory landscape, right, I think it's good that customers get better protection, right? So recently in Singapore, we actually received the MPI license to operate, to continue to sell digital assets to allow our customers to basically buy and sell digital assets. That's licensed under the DPT Services Act, right? So I think for us, we tend to only operate in markets whereby we have licenses in, right? So that being said, we are quite a compliant exchange, and I think we are one of the most compliant exchanges globally. So it's always good that customers have like that sense of like customer security and protection.
Okay, and Yuki?
Yeah, so I think in terms of fundamental, I want to talk about it from like a developer perspective. So I think, as you said, it has like a kind of downstream right now. It's pretty much bear market. But I think in terms of developer ecosystem, it's still having a lot of fundamental evolution or evolution. So now, I mean, compared to like last 2 years, 3 years, it became more scalable. It means it can have more transaction doing it, and also we can have more accessibilities. So before you need to have like a wallet, you need to have a crypto in advance, but now it became more easier to access with like an email or Google login, or you don't have to have a crypto in advance to start to play like Web3 games or whatever. So I think that development-wise, I think fundamental is still growing. So yeah, we're hoping to see like a match with regulation and market situation as well.
Okay, that's positive. And Cholo, what's your thoughts?
I think for us, we see this as a great time to be in crypto, actually. And a lot of people, I guess the narrative back then, it was kind of conflating two things. One is crypto and blockchain. And because crypto is really driven a lot by price action, right? Adoption in crypto just does correlate really strongly with price of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And because pricing is down, of course, adoption is a bit slower. But a blockchain, I would say the builders out there are still continuing to do really cool things. And I think now we are seeing, as Yuki mentioned, improvements in the UX. Now people can get onto blockchain via SSOs, and that's going to be what's going to drive the great wave of adoption. And I think what we see is actually gaming is that big use case, right? Gamers have always been a bit more adventurous when it comes to new technology. They've always adopted stuff faster. And there's a lot of really great innovations coming on stream from a gaming standpoint. Now, of course, people always talk about the tokenization of economies, but what we're really excited about and what we're focusing on is actually blockchain for player identity. How do you enable and empower players to get value from their time spent in games and time spent gaming, which has not historically been achievable prior to blockchain?
All right, so we're hearing technology. We're hearing a little bit of that sort of steps, I think, towards regulatory. There's still regulatory framework that allows and able to foster the business of crypto. So I think let's take a little bit on that point on technology. I think we've seen the fundamentals of blockchain as a core technology. We've also seen some exciting, I think, developments that intersects with that, like GAI, which is generative AI. And we've also seen devices that came into the market relatively recently with Apple Vision Pro. How would you see all of that intersecting with the world of video games, and where would you see the paradigm shift to be? I think, again, open to the panelists to comment. Maybe starting with Ben, what are your thoughts?
Right. So, like, just imagine, like, you're playing a game and there's like a companion that is in some of these games. Imagine like Skyrim, right? So generative AI is quite interesting because you could do things like just like you could how you could generate new images by training them on like Stable Diffusion or even Midjourney, right? You could theoretically like put in an image of someone that you know or someone that you like, for example, like a K-pop idol that you like. You could generate a companion that looks similar to a person that you want to accompany you on your video gaming journey, right? In the same way, right, when you think about like how AI got to where it is today, right, a lot of the interest was driven a lot by ChatGPT over the past half a year. So that being said, right, dialogues could be driven more towards in-game dialogues could be trained using like some of these models whereby people can give you like your companions could say things that are more relevant to what you've done and some of the actions that you've made in game, right? So talking about generative AI, I think those are some things that we'll think about. One thing that I also wanted to add was that in terms of Apple Vision Pro, right, and metaverse, right. So I think if you guys recall, back in 2021, Facebook did that whole thing whereby they promised what a vision of the metaverse kind of looks like, but that unfortunately hasn't really taken off and has kind of fizzled out as a result of some internal strife that they have internally, right. But one thing that's interesting to know about Apple Vision Pro, right, is the fact that it's made by Apple, right? And you think about how AirPods came to be right now. AirPods was made very easy because of the distribution platforms that they have by Apple stores. It was very easy to connect your AirPods to your phone, for example. So I do think that Apple Vision Pro has the potential to make things, make some of the dreams that we have in Metaverse a lot more achievable, right? As a result of some of the distribution and also the tech that they already have and the devices that we have in our hands right now, which I think most of us here use iPhones, right? So something that's interesting to take note of.
Okay, so good points on ecosystem. I think that's the angle that you're going for. And Yuki?
Yeah, so I think those technology revolution like generative AI or Web3 or metaverse, whatever. So I think those things will bring more like digital first world, or it could bring more immersive experience for everyone, including games, of course. And then, for example, for generative AI, there were some creators or companies in Japan who made a Fortnite world of like Tokyo just in 3 days by using generative AI. They could make a like whole world of using like a Fortnite's Unreal editors just 3 days. Actually, it was really amazing. It really looks like the Tokyo I live. So it makes happen. So it will create more content easily for metaverse or even like digital world. And at the time, I think Web3 or NFT, I mean, NFT is a bit hard to understand, but I think for me it's more like digital property light. So I think when everyone create more content easily, or everyone goes to digital and having more like a transaction, like purchasing something or selling something, at the time the property light in digital will be important. So I think that's where Web3 or NFT or blockchain will be more fundamental for these technology updates.
Yeah, I think you brought up NFTs, which is essential. I think it's one of the common sort of commonalities between that. And of course, community involvement. And Cholo?
Personally, I'm very excited about the future intersection of AI and gaming. Automation, kind of bots, anyone who's played an MMORPG is pretty familiar actually that there have been botting and AI that's been around for quite some time. But if you actually look at Gen AI, and I was talking to someone yesterday, is that because of how the LLMs are coded, there often are cases where ChatGPT invents facts, right? It basically, because the prompt is not done well, but it starts creating facts that are not necessarily true. And blockchain is actually the safeguard against that, because there is going to come a point where it's going to be very trivial to create an AI that will go into an online game, and then you as an individual, you wouldn't know whether you're interacting with a real player or are you interacting with a very sophisticated AI bot. But then blockchain with player identity, with immutable player profiles, that is going to be a safeguard. So you can go and interact in certain safe spaces in MMORPGs where you know there's only people are allowed, and no bots and no AIs. So I think that's going to be really interesting stuff that's going to intersect. And as AI creates even stuff like esports will get challenged by AI, but it's just humans are just going to create new game models, new ways of competition. And I think those are very interesting to see what that will evolve into over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think great point. I think the decentralization, which is again fundamental capability of Web3, is able to also safeguard against the technology or the abuse of AI, which I think some of the regulatory framework today has really started to look at that, including Singapore. So I think the next question is on the commercial side. What have you seen so far in terms of the commercial use cases that really harness the capabilities of Web3 and blockchain in the world of video games? Have you seen some of the successful use cases, and can you share that? And maybe I'll start off with Yuki first before I go into Ben and Cholo.
Yeah, sure. I think I cannot say it's already successful. I think it's still on the way to be successful, but I'm very interested in what Nike is doing in commercial-wise. So actually, Nike just acquired the virtual sneaker studio like 2021, which called Artifact. And then after that, last year they just launched Swoosh, which is the like a Web3 platform or community where they can, their communities can like buy or sell their assets, and then not only that, they can provide like a co-creation experience to their customers. And then back in last May, just 1 month ago, they launched their first digital sneaker collection, which was like $19, and then it was only for limited access, only for their community members, but it has like 1 million sales in just 1 week or something. And then I think after that, for this month, they started to announce the partnership with like Esports and Fortnite. So I think they started to bring not only selling just the physical sneakers, but also selling the digital sneakers as well, and then giving the utilities to have like early access for physical product or limited events, and also have like interoperability with those games. So I think that's one thing I'm very interested in terms of commercial-wise.
Okay, that's Nike and Ben.
Yeah, so when you think about like commercial successes, I think a few examples come to mind, right? NBA Top Shot, a few $100 million worth of card sales, for example. You think about Axie Infinity. After that Bloomberg article came out in 2021, whereby they talk about how people in the Philippines were playing Axie and earning a living. You saw like the MAU go up from like 700K to 2.5 mil. Obviously, these days they are not doing, the MAU is not as high anymore. But that being said, the team have pivoted to doing like their own chain as well, right? So I think recently Ronin had like a announcement whereby they were going to onboard something like 7 to 8 new games, putting on top of the chain. So that being said, that points to how people are still interested in like blockchain games, and how games that are built on blockchain are something that's worth looking into, right? But of course, that being said, we can also understand that games need to move away from like having like a lot of strong token emissions, like SLP emissions, and moving more towards like community-based, like community building, I would say. So that's how
Okay, good point. And Cholo?
I would say that where we see the opportunity and really the commercial aspect of the whole platform we're building is attribution. And it's allowing really the players to get attribution for their attention. We are, I would say, in the initial stages of evolving into the attention economy. And up to this point in time, players play games, like I played games as well, way back in the day. Publishers spend a lot of money to have players discover their games and play it and build that ecosystem from the ground up. Up until today, gamers haven't really benefited from all that spent. They've been spending to acquire us, but we've spent countless hours playing stuff like Clash of Clans. When we abandon a game, we don't actually carry any of that identity with us. But now that's going to change. With blockchain, with player profiles, I can rest easy saying I can spend 20,000 hours playing Valorant. And if I do decide to go to CSGO, I can carry that profile with me. And I think that's going to be powerful. As a player, you don't have to start from square one in every new game you go into. And as a developer, you're also making sure that you're rewarding that player and giving them a reason to start your game, because they don't have to go grind from level 0 up to level 70, right? So I think the transferability of skill, time spent for gamers, that's very important. That's, I think, what we're building around to empower the player.
Okay, so the point about crossing over different gaming ecosystems, I think that is still a little bit of a step above us. I think earlier we talked a little bit about Sky Mavis. We know that they launched a E4E, which is Esports for Everyone tournament. It's a blockchain metaverse competition, and they've tabled quite a substantial amount of money, or enough money to sort of make that attractive, for more than $1 million. What are your thoughts on that? I think maybe we'll start with Cholo, and then maybe Yuki, and then Ben, and then we talk about other angles and other areas.
I personally think it's a great development. I think that an esports, a Web3 native esports push or tournament will potentially create really different ways and business models to think about how kind of like tournaments and even other Web2 developers can monetize, right? One of the things that like I personally am quite excited about is the emergence of collectibles within the esports industry. So for example, like in traditional sports, right? Game-worn jerseys of the championship game of Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, those go for millions of dollars if they ever go up for sale. We don't have that equivalent in esports yet, but with NFTs, that could be possible, right? Would you want to pay for a piece of history, the Axie that won the first ever Axie tournament ever? I think that someone somewhere in the world is going to pay a lot of top dollar for that. And once, I guess, traditional gaming companies and tournament organizers see that is another way to monetize, then maybe they wake up and say, oh, maybe I'll do NFTs for the equipment for the CSGO major championships. So that kind of stuff all becomes really interesting once you start having Web3 native esports tournaments and they start doing different things.
Okay, I think that's a great point in terms of the intersection and I think some of the untapped opportunities. But we'll hold that thought. And then Yuki?
Yeah, so actually I agree with what Cholo said now. So it's pretty interesting to provide like a memorabilia or like a part of the journey of like esports team or like tournament as well. And then I think what esports team can do is when you have something celebrate or something to celebrate together with your fans. I think that's the time you can also provide, distribute or sell the like memorabilia, which could be on chain, so that it's not only for for them to have it in the closed ecosystem. They can use it or flex it in the other channel. It could be other social media, or it could be any platform or any marketplace. You can use it for flexing it as well. And also, I think in terms of tournament, it's a good way to attract new users. I mean, it has a good amount of prize pool now, and then maybe this is one of the ways to involve more people to Web3 games as well.
Okay, so NFTs again, recurring narrative, and then Ben?
Yeah, I think Cholo and Yuki have brought up most of the points, right? I'm generally supportive of initiatives that kind of build up the community, especially when now you see MAU generally coming down, right? It would be good to kind of just have the community just reinvigorate their interest in XE again.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think on taking off that note and a little bit on Cholo's side, let's talk a little bit of the untapped opportunities. I think from a pure commercial point of view, right? Because it's all about Web3 capabilities, video games as a business. From the commercial point of view, do you see any untapped areas or untapped opportunities and segments that will be able to allow video gaming sector and the esports sector to go in and draw down, I think, from the world of Web3 and blockchain? Maybe Ben, your thoughts, and then Yuki and Cholo.
I think from a onboarding onto Web3 kind of perspective, right? There are additional revenue streams to be made from onboarding on Web3. So for example, imagine right now in Web 2, right? When you sell merchandise and most merchandise cannot be sold on the secondary market. So you effectively lose that ability to make royalties off of every secondary trade. So by putting things on chain, right, you're basically able to enforce an on-chain royalty of 2.5% every time a secondary trade is made, for example. These days, I think when it comes to gaming studios in Japan, for example, I think some of them are validating on the Oasis chain, for example. There's organic 10% yield that you make on top of, for kind of validating, providing consensus to the Oasis chain, for example. And then when people delegate to your validator node, for example, you could also make delegation fees and stuff like that. So there's opportunity there to also make money, right? Yeah, I think one of the new things that people can think about at the same time, right, is new innovations in the market. For example, recently there was a new innovation called ERC 6551. So typically, when in Web3 gaming right now, you just own ERC 721s in your non-custodial wallet. But now, with new innovation, right, you could have an account NFT that owns NFTs within this NFT, right? ERC 6551. So there's new innovation there to be made, whereby you could, rather than just selling a single item, you could sell an entire account whereby this NFT already owns all the equipment set, right? For example, and it has attributes defined to the NFT already. So there's a lot of things that I think gaming companies can look at, which I think they have not yet, right? So when you think about why people don't do this, right? We've seen games whereby they've tried to move their games fully on chain, but the community didn't like NFTs and they were completely against it. So I think it's important to kind of communicate some of these things to the community and saying that there are some additional revenue opportunities that the community can make, or even the company can make, so that they can better improve the game for the users. But I think generally users tend to be a bit more adverse to Web3, which I think is an education kind of problem that developers need to kind of get over.
Yeah. Okay. Great points. And Yuki?
Yeah, so actually, as Ben said, ESC 651 is very interested. And then actually, yeah, so I think one of the good opportunity could be a rental marketplace, or rental a skin or assets or equipment. So yeah, as I said, maybe NFT could enable a digital property right, and it means that each players can buy, sell, trade, or rent it. So at the time, for example, if I play, let's say, there's some Pokemon type of games, and I made this character to 100 levels, but somehow I'm kind of busy and I cannot play for a month. But I can lend it to other players, and other players can use it for their play. And at the time, the game itself can get a secondary fee, market fee, as Ben said, so that it could generate another source of revenue inside the game ecosystem. I think that's one of the opportunities we can look for.
Okay, great. And Cholo?
I guess both Ben and Yuki did cover quite a little bit. Maybe one thing that we don't hear as much, but I think is quite exciting, is as more and more games get built on chain, then you start to have these really interesting models where essentially it becomes like a wager model. So now as more and more games become on chain, then you can actually start wagering on micro, kind of like games within the games. That already happens, right? It already happens in sports betting. You bet the over/under, you bet the money line, you bet like will Kevin Durant saying 6 free throws or 5 free throws this game. Once you start seeing that in games, then you can start really seeing the wagering market evolve, right? We already see it like whenever, back in the day when we were mostly running an Axie Guild and we run internal Axie tournaments, the players would bet against each other on the game that's currently happening. So there is a very innate desire for wagering and risk-taking for gamers. As you kind of like grow that ecosystem, then there's gonna be lots of opportunity for providers to start having a much richer layer of wagering and betting for on-chain games.
Okay, great points. I think untapped opportunities that exist in the micro versions of that. So we are almost time, and then before we do a quick wrap up, just invite all my esteemed panelists today with one sentence on where you envision the holy grail of marrying both Web3 capabilities, blockchain with video games. What is your vision on that? And we start with one sentence. Maybe we start with Cholo, Yuki, and then Ben, and then we do a wrap up.
Yeah, I think for us it's really player empowerment. Web3 and blockchain allows players to benefit from the time spent gaming, and that's never been achievable so far in such a direct and transparent way. Okay,
so that's one word, empowerment. And Yuki?
Yeah, I think we can, with using Web3 or NFT, we can build more stronger community which have an aligned incentive between like games and players or esports teams. So I think that kind of ecosystem, I'm very excited.
Okay, so stronger ecosystem for all parties and all stakeholders. And Ben?
I hope to see games that are more fun to play whilst relying on less on monetary incentives.
Okay, so better quality of gameplay for everyone. So with that, we'll do a wrap up. And just to check in with the organizers, do we still have time to take any questions? Organizers? No? Okay. All right. We'll do a wrap up. And thank you very much. And please enjoy lunch. I'm Debbie, and I'm wrapping up this panel. Thank you.
Thank you.